Biden in those suburbs, and then I'm going to look at North Carolina because that is a state that has a lot of diversity, and so we'll be able to sort of like get a really good sense of where the different coalitions are going to be heading into what increasingly looks like a head-to-head brawl between Sanders and Biden. It's going to be, I think, a very messy several months.
Yeah, I agree. All right, let me ask you this, because I know what your type does, and I know that you hold back on this stuff, but you're going to tell us so that we know this, and we won't share it with anybody else. What counties in Virginia, North Carolina, and Texas, or regions of the state, should we be looking at that? I know you're like you know, right?
I'm not that type of guy. I'm not that type of election leader.
He keeps it back. He holds it back.
No, I promise you, I'm not that type.
I don't believe it.
It's definitely not what I do.
All right. Well, so much. All right, fair enough. I get it.
I can tell you what type of online non-probability sample is the best to be purchasing for these primaries, but
the what?
That's not the type of nerd. What type of sample head-to-head brawl between Sanders and Biden? It's going to be, I think, a very messy several months.
Yeah, I agree. All right, let me ask you this, because I know what your type does, and I know that you hold back on this stuff, but you're going to tell us so that we know this, and we won't share it with anybody else. What counties in Virginia, North Carolina, and Texas, or regions of the state, should we be looking at that? I know you're like you know, right?
I'm not that type of guy. I'm not that type of election leader.
He keeps it back. He holds it back.
No, I promise you, I'm not that type.
I don't believe it.
It's definitely not what I do.
All right. Well, so much. All right, fair enough. I get it.
I can tell you what type of online non-probability sample is the best to be purchasing for these primaries, but
the what?
That's not the type of nerd. What type of sample is the best to look at these races?
Oh, okay.
Where do you get your sample from?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
That's what I study.
You look at the polling, not the results.
I think about how to best get our polls to be accurate, and as they were, first three contests were the most accurate polls from the country, and I think we're aiming to hold that mantle on Super Tuesday.
When do you come out with your Super Tuesday polls?
We were texting. We did our text to web. Texted more than 300,000 respondents. Our team is currently analyzing that now, and we are planning to start dropping those as soon as possible. Probably tonight. I don't think we're gonna try to do anything tomorrow.
What about doing it right now? Oh, wait a second. Do you want to deliver those polls?
We don't have any polls. We were texting all day yesterday to get post South Carolina.
All right.
See what changed. So, it takes a long time to do polling.
All right, suit yourself, McElwee, if that's the way you want to do it. And you got all those folks in your back room working on those numbers. Well, I can hear the.
I'll talk to you tomorrow. We'll have them all out tonight, and we can talk tomorrow morning.
All right, great. Sean McElwee, Data for Progress. Thanks so much for your time today. I really appreciate it, buddy.
Have a great one.
Bye-bye. There it is. Follow him on Twitter. He'll be happy. I think that's basically it, folks. I think at the after Super Tuesday, we're going to be in a very sort of different world, I imagine.
Yeah, don't slack on those Bernie texts and phone calls, guys.
Yeah, and here's the other thing. Corey Robin had a tweet to this effect, and John Benjamin and I dressed some canvassers up in Worcester at one of those hipster parties, and I forgot to mention this to them. I mean, first of all, the canvassers, it was just amazing. The people were just so dedicated. I mean, regardless of who you support, it's really great to see people coming out and working for a candidate and caring enough about this stuff. But one of the things you can do, too, is, if you can't get out there, obviously, people phone bank and whatnot, but the most effective thing you can do is convince your parents or your cousins or your sisters or your brothers or maybe your kids. I think if someone's undecided right now, it's because I would imagine that 8 out of 10 of those people, 9 out of 10 of those people are because they're just not sure who can beat Trump. And I think the best argument is, honestly, is just like you got to go where there's the most energy, because the people who are supporting Joe Biden are the people who are heavily invested in getting rid of, are going to vote for high propensity voters. I haven't seen data to this effect. It's my theory, and it's a theory. This is you're so much of these type of like political persuasion is based upon arguments that sound good, but not necessarily where there's a tremendous amount of data. But I would imagine that that what we're looking at is high propensity voters. So the key is who's the candidate who's going to get the low propensity voters. And here is the argument that I also whisper a little bit, because there are folks who are, in my mind, I mean, look, there have been times I have not voted Democratic for the Democratic. Well, in New York, we've got fusion voting, so I vote for usually the Democratic candidate on a non-Democratic line. And I suppose there may have been some occasions where I have not done that, but only where I don't think there's any jeopardy of letting the Republican.
What's up? I can hear you. Can you hear me? Hello. Can you hear me? Say what? Shit. Fuck.